My guest today is Tommy Falgout. Tommy, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. Yourself?
I'm doing really well. I want to say congratulations. I saw you at Microsoft Build on the stage with Mark Russinovich, Scott Hanselman, and Tommy, all the big shots up on stage.
Now I
And you
am.
were
Yeah.
yeah. This could be the kind of spontaneous publicity that makes people.
Could be my breakthrough role. Yeah.
Exactly. And you were demoing something really cool. Tell us what you were demoing.
Sure. So I was demoing what I call bad AI in a box,
Bad eye.
and it makes for a nice just makes for a nice BAI IAB, and it was a fun way of taking all this AI, which can be scary, which can be concerning, and try to make light of it and say, hey, look, this is something approachable.
Cool. Tell us, what is bad AI in a box?
So, like, what is it made of? Like, how the
Just
technology
tell us
behind it?
what. Yeah, no, talk about just what does it do? What's its intended
Sure.
purpose?
Well, we're in luck
Nothing
because I have
good,
it.
I'm guessing.
Nothing good. I'm not for that. So I've actually got it right here,
Okay.
and this is the AI, and you've got. Let's see. Oh, the screen is not coming through very well, but there is a
Okay.
little interface here.
Yep.
It's got a 20 by 4 LED matrix, and with words on it, and I've got the little button that I can use to as an interface for it. And this
Yeah.
interface I kind of copied off of some of the 3D printers that I've seen before.
Hmm. You're
And
right.
so
We
I
can't
can,
see that screen very well. So you have to just
yeah,
tell us what happens when I turn the knob. What do you see?
so when you turn the knob, you'll see different things. Like right now, it says "Welcome to AI in a box," and it has advice or fake facts, and I can scroll through, and it can also show me a menu of cocktails or conspiracies or insults. And
Yes.
if I were to, you said insults, so like if I press the button, it'll now give me another submenu, and we can do a Monty Python, Shakespeare, um, French, German, Spanish insult.
So those are
So
in in their native languages.
yes,
So if
so
you feel inadequate, I just met this German guy. I feel totally inadequate. I want to insult him,
there you
but I
go.
want to
So,
be polite about it. I want to insult him in his own language. That's because that's the polite thing to do.
so let's go with that. You said a German, and so what we'll do is I'll press the German button, and so now what this is doing is this is going to Azure's OpenAI
Mhm. That's
and
a
coming
as
up with
service.
a prompt. It's giving it a prompt for asking for a German insult. And I do not speak German, but this one
I
might
speak
be
a tiny bit.
this one is Du hast Charisma einer, a really long word.
Du hast
You
as you have.
you have the charisma of a sleeping doormat. And
Well
so
played.
this is what it will print out.
Du Schwein! How dare you?
And it's been again a fun way to take AI and kind of turn it on its head and play around with some of the things that you might again not make it as scary.
All right. I have two people are using AI for good. Let's do something evil with
Yeah,
AI. Let's
exactly.
insult people
Ex-
or give bad advice. Oh, show me
uh,
some bad advice. Actually, let's try. I
Oh,
want to
you
do
would
that
like
one.
some bad advice? All right. So we're gonna again go to it. That's the top one, advice, and we're gonna do bad. And so now it is again going to Azure's OpenAI instance and trying to ask for some bad advice, but nothing too. We don't want anything like too risque. Ah, there we go. This is someone. Sure. When you're lost in the wilderness, just yell out password 123 into the Wi-Fi, into the air. Wi-Fi will show you the way out.
You could get someone killed with that advice. That's terrible
Yeah,
advice.
that one is. Yeah, I don't think that one's gonna get you out of the wilderness.
Awesome. Oh, let's talk about the tech behind this. So what's involved there?
Sure. So there's a Raspberry Pi.
Hmm?
And the Raspberry Pi is the brain of it all. I've got Python running in the Raspberry Pi, and it's technically a Pi Zero W. So you've probably heard of Raspberry Pi 4s,
Okay.
Raspberry 3s. This one is one of the really, really tiny ones, and we'll maybe go into a bit later why, but because the other ones take up a lot of power. I wanted something as lightweight as possible.
Hmm.
This thing has one core. It
Okay.
is not very powerful, but it was just enough to be able to run a Python script, which
Hmm.
would go to talk to the OpenAI APIs, and then use another library for a thermal printer.
Hmm.
So it's basically once it gets that request to, hey, look, I pressed the button. It's listening to all those things. Hey, look, has Tommy turned the knob? Okay, let's display this on the that little blue LED display. And then once it gets all those messages, it'll go to Azure OpenAI with that Python script, and then we'll send the message to the thermal printer. Thankfully, there's lots of libraries out there, so I didn't have to write the interfaces for this from scratch, and I was able to use that and kind of piece this all together. Oh, and then the box itself is 3D printed
You three,
because now I'm dealing with, yeah, I'm now dealing with custom parts, so I didn't
ah,
want to be I wanted this to be as mysterious as possible. So I would often come up to people and I'd be like, I would just walk around with this, kind of holding it out, and like,
what is that thing in your hand
what's in the
there?
box? And
Yeah.
there's always like something. If it's a black box, it doesn't have anything to it, but there's a glow to it, and it seems to draw people in like insects. And this has been the great thing to get people's attention. Like, what is that? And then I was like, oh, well, would you like some bad AI?
Who wouldn't?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I'll take some bad. And uh, the thermal printer then will, as you've seen, just like a receipt printer, it it was kind of fascinating. It will actually slightly burn the paper to make
Mm.
all the marks, and that's what it's doing to register all that.
And it has to talk to the cloud to talk to
Yes,
OpenAI. And,
yes. So that was another kind of tricky part is, you know, every bit of this, it will go to Azure's OpenAI, kind of pull this down, get the response. The thing is, I would sometimes take this with me on like anywhere and everywhere that may or may not have internet connectivity.
mm,
So what I'll do is I'll have it tethered to my phone, and whenever it
okay.
wakes up, it'll use my phone. I have also then had to add an offline mode so that if ever there's more than 2 or 3 seconds to a response, or if it's not getting something, it will then use a pre-canned one just to like give something, just because
Ah,
otherwise, one of the things I've learned is that people can get very impatient. Like if nothing happens, if you give them this box or show them this box and say press the button, and then nothing happens in 5 seconds, people start losing interest. And so
ah,
I wanted to make sure to have something that kept them intrigued.
interesting. Now, when you talk to Azure OpenAI, you're sending a prompt to
Correct.
Azure OpenAI. That's how it works. But you're putting some thought into that type of prompt. Talk a little bit about that process.
Sure. So one of the first things was like, what should I send? And hey, I want bad advice. This was actually the thing that started it off. And then it would give bad advice, but then sometimes it's like, oh, you know what? Let's not talk about certain subjects. We just want to make sure we're offline. And or certain times I would notice that the prompt would I would get an error back. And I
Hmm.
found out that there was responsible, one of the big things in Microsoft is responsible AI.
Sure.
And I found out that there was actually withdrawing a whole bunch um, of responses because I'm asking for bad AI, asking for
Right.
bad advice, and so it would might give me some things, and then uh, I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but it would like moderate that and prevent
Right.
that from being sent to me.
So it's a good example is somebody's lost in the woods. They could give advice that would actually be, if followed, would really be actively harmful. And
Exactly.
even though the engine might generate that, there was some responsible AI guardrails that were
Exactly.
filtering
Yes.
out a response like, go light yourself on fire. That's it
Yeah.
probably it might that might be good
Self-harm.
answer to bad advice, but the guardrails might prevent that from being returned.
Absolutely. And in fact,
Kids, don't
whenever
light yourself on fire. That's
But yeah,
don't do
this is
that.
so one of the things I've had to add to it at the very bottom was a disclaimer. And I talked to some of our OpenAI gurus here, and they said, "Hey,
Uh,
look, here's a disclaimer. Please add this to the bottom." And that's um, people kind of like that as well. It's like, ah, yeah, okay, I wasn't really going to do this, but thanks for the disclaimer here. Uh, it's been fascinating because every now and then something you might see something like, oh, that's a little bit risque. maybe let me go talk to the content people, and then so working with them to kind of help moderate that, because again, I am doing something that is well, skirting the path of responsible AI.
By definition, bad
By
advice is
definition, again,
probably not that responsible.
I might ask it for a drink, and it'll give some, really disgusting, like a disgusting cocktail is one of my favorites because it starts off like tasty. Oh, this is nice. This is nice. Oh my gosh! And now we're adding this. Like, no, that would hurt.
Do you do anything in terms of grounding your prompts ahead of time?
Oh, great question. No.
Okay.
So whenever you're doing grounding, you're often trying to make sure, hey, is this valid to like a truth? And there's no like truth that I'm trying to hit. I do like I have done some iterations on this to say, hey, look, is this close to what I want? And if you've worked with prompt engineering, if you've done any prompt engineering, you might have noticed there's like the system prompt and then the actual user prompt. And what I've found to be valuable is playing more with that system prompt of like, hey, look, you are a cocktail, uh, you're you're a bartender, and you're a bartender that has just been asked to make a really bad drink. Please come up with a bad drink for me. And that's been where I guess less about grounding, but more about, hey, am I kind of feeling this out? Because I don't have a specific bit of data that I'm trying to work against.
Okay.
So in that way, I've got a little bit more free form, we'll say, free form options.
Tell me about the how this gets started. What inspired you to do
Hmm.
this?
So a few, gosh, many months, now I think about it, many moons ago,
At least a
uh,
year. That's when you first showed it
yeah,
to me. It's about a year and a
there,
half ago at KubeCon.
yep, I think that sounds about right. And prior to that, we had an internal hackathon where they said, hey, let's spend some time working and playing with this new fangled thing called OpenAI. And we're like, all right, yeah, I've heard about ChatGPT. Let's play around with this. What is that? Okay, I can ask it for that. Oh, okay, it can give me information. Oh, it can summarize a document. That's neat. It can do this. And I was like, huh, well, what if I need help? What if I'm a human being and I need help with this? Can it give me some ideas of this? And like, okay, it's kind of, it can give me some loose ideas, but what if I turn it on its head? What if I tried asking it for things that maybe aren't appropriate? And David, you and I have worked long enough. You probably know I like to skirt around and play around and be a little bit mischievous with things and here and there. And I was like, all right, let's see if we can kind of make this do what it's not supposed to be doing. And I came up with the very first like bad AI bot. And you could ask it for advice on love, advice on what to do with your boss. And I thought this was great. It was just a website I made, little, and all it did was just give you bad advice on whatever topic it was you wanted. And it didn't really catch on. I thought it was funny. But then I had a friend that had a project from Adafruit. I don't know if you've ever seen these, but it's basically Adafruit is a company that does lots of hobby electronics. They
Hmm.
do great stuff with LEDs, with Raspberry Pis, and they had this project, this all-in-one project where if you pressed a button, it would then like give you a pre-canned fortune using the thermal printer.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, that's really neat. What if I could do that? And then it became a thing of like, okay, how can I modify the code that already talks to the thermal printer and use it to talk to OpenAI? And that's when it got interesting. And that's where
Yeah.
people were like more intrigued by this project.
Yeah, I remember we walking around the KubeCon vendor floor, and people were asking you about this thing, and it was a good icebreaker.
It has opened many doors, including the one where I got to be on the keynote at Build.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was fun to see up there. The code is available online somewhere, isn't it?
Mm, absolutely. So if you go to the GitHub repo, which I think we'll provide out later,
I'll put it in the show
or
notes.
if you go to aka.ms/BAIIAB, bad AI in a box,
Okay.
that will take you there as well.
Well, that if I fetch that code, is that that's just the software part? What about the hardware? Are there instructions on the hardware as well?
Absolutely. So one of the things I've had to do, not just for well, kind of for myself, but in case anyone else wants to do, is come up with the bill of materials.
Okay.
And that bill of materials is here's the Raspberry Pi specific version of the Raspberry Pi I got. Here is the thermal printer.
Hmm.
That project I mentioned that from Adafruit, they no longer sell that.
Hmm.
And so I had to go and find a spare one, and I had to order it from China. Well, I now have a link to that because if ever I want, I thought I lost this box for a little bit. I was like, oh, I'm going to have to make a whole new one. Thankfully, I know where the build of materials is, and
Hmm.
I've used this to kind of refine. And so there's actually two of these boxes out there. One of our coworkers brought it to KubeCon Europe, and I
Oh,
haven't
cool. I
gotten it
didn't know
back
that.
yet. So we'll see. That said, I don't need it back because I've got the spare one.
Nice. Don't tell him that.
But yeah, it's got everything you need to make your own. Again, the 3D printing files, the code, the bill of materials, and where to get all the hardware.
And this is an open source project out on GitHub,
Yes,
correct? Are you
correct.
accepting
Absolutely.
forks and pull
I, I
requests?
I'm completely aware that I've done this in my own head and I've written down what I can, but once someone else wants to play or do something with this, I would love to see what other people come up with it.
Very cool. Are you still actively working on it, or do you have a punch list of new features that are coming?
So every time I go to a new conference, I'll change up the prompts.
Okay.
So I think the core technology, like I've spent a lot of time refining it and getting down to the bare minimum of how can I make this most interesting as possible, but minimalist as possible. And I think I've got it. Like maybe there's some things I can do, but I feel like I've got a pretty good, um, like there's nothing else to remove, and I don't think there's much else to add. But
Mhm.
whenever I do go to a new conference, I might want to come up with fake facts about that conference.
Oh, interesting.
And so whenever we were at Build, I was like, hey, come up with fake facts about Microsoft, fake facts
Ah,
about Build, fake facts about Satya Nadella.
I bet he loved that.
That was one where every time I did it, we're talking about responsible AI and all this. Every time someone asked for a fake fact, like I have to look at this one first before I show it to you because
Because you never
this
know.
could
I
be
do have a job that I could lose
I could get in trouble here,
with
and
your
so I have
bosses,
to.
bosses, bosses, bosses,
Yeah,
bosses,
yeah.
bosses, boss,
Many,
who, by the way, subscribes to this show.
oh, wow. Hi, Satya.
I, I actually made that up. I have no idea.
Disclaimer. But yeah, that's a hopscotch level. Like I don't know how many skips it takes to get there, but yeah,
It's eight. I
it
counted
is eight. Okay,
it.
fair enough.
Awesome. Is there anything else we haven't talked about that you think people really should know about this?
I think the thing that was the people that don't realize of having done something like this before that project that I was mentioning on Adafruit had a wire and it was actually had a plug to it.
Mhm.
And
And this
so
is
you
all
were able,
wireless.
this is wireless. And that was one of the trickiest things for me
Hmm.
was trying to figure out how can I get enough power to do this. And
Where does
this
the
is
power
what,
come from?
well, there is a battery inside here.
Like a D cell or
It is it's a, not a D cell, but it's an Amazon battery that I found online.
okay.
The thing is, I went through about five different batteries before I found one that matched.
Hmm.
And this is one of the challenging things about the project that I often take on is, you and I, we've been doing software for quite a while, and this is awesome. This is great. But for me, it's challenging, but it's also more fulfilling when there's a hardware piece to it, when there's
Yeah.
something real to it. And our my software brain doesn't always think about hardware. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, I just plug this into a battery and this is going to work, right? No, voltage, amperage, watts. And what I didn't realize is that the reason why this was plugged in to a wall wart or wall socket is because the thermal printer has a really high spike that it takes.
Hmm.
And one of the problems I had is I started using a battery. I would use a battery and I would there's like one USB port onto it, and that's how I would power my Raspberry Pi. And then I would use that same power. I would pull some power off of that Raspberry Pi to power the thermal printer. Well, it would have this big spike, and so the big spike would come through the Raspberry Pi, go to the printer, and then reboot the Pi.
Oh, I see.
And I was like, what's going on? Why is this thing rebooting every time I'm trying to print something? And I was like, oh, okay, it's drawing too much. All right, well, let me see if I can change the things. And so then I changed it, but then it wasn't drawing enough power. And so everything was coming off very, very light. Because remember, we were mentioning it burns the paper to make that.
Mm,
So when I realized, wow, I've got to, I've got to think about power in this. It's
right.
not just I plug it in, oh, hey, this is all handled. No, if I'm trying to make this portable, I had to go and find a very special battery that would handle the amount of amperage, the amount of amps I needed, as well as the voltage. And I found one, oh, and like having two separate USB ports, not just a single
Right. One
one.
dedicated to the printer, one dedicated to the Pi.
Exactly. And this is something that, in software we don't think about. And it was really frustrating. I spent a lot of time trying to debug this and figure this out. Thankfully, Amazon exists, and there was some healthy return policies. And I finally found one that didn't reboot, that was able to keep the power, able to draw enough current so that it could burn the paper without rebooting anything else, or without um, stopping power sending it
Right.
anywhere else.
Awesome. I've heard this argument before that for cell phone technology, for smartphone technology,
Mm,
smartphones could be way more powerful than they are right now. The
mm,
limiting factor is the battery,
the battery, yes.
the amount of power we can draw. If we could live with this battery only lasting 30 minutes, these things would be amazing,
Yeah,
much more amazing than they are now. And
it's
as they keep solving, that's the challenge they keep solving with new generations is the software technology already exists to have these applications do amazing things. And the cameras be great, but you can't. You can only batteries can only be so big to fit inside of that form factor.
and exactly the word, the form factor. And I this really changed my idea and my perception of how I work with other items, because the form factor is so important. It's, oh yeah, cool. My my MacBook Pro. This is pretty impressive. They did that, but now I have a whole new appreciation for what it took to get, again, all the wires. There's a number of wires in here that had to be in a very specific configuration because there's limited space. That thermal printer takes up a lot of space, so I had to put the battery vertical. And then I had to,
Mm.
whenever this is in an airplane, this is going to jostle around, so I got to put some Velcro.
Oh, interesting.
Because I wanted to initially taped the battery to the side. Well, that doesn't work very well if I need to pull the battery out
Mm.
or do something else with it. So I got some very specific Velcro tape, and that would allow me to do this dynamically.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, it really opened my eyes to new ways of design and all the intricacies of physical design, not just the software.
Awesome. Well, that's the coolest project I've seen in a long time,
Thank you.
Tommy, and I really appreciate you sharing with us.
Yeah, happy to. It's been a love of labor, and it's again got me into some really interesting doors. I lived a blessed life. I really do. And one of the reasons that I live a blessed life is because I've the people in my life. And the people in my life are my friends that I really connect with are also into technology. I love that I can have these types of conversations with them, because I was just at a library where we do a kind of makers guild, and we hang out and talk tech and talk this and talk that and talk that. And I think that's one of my favorite things, is be able to talk technology and bounce ideas off with my friends.